Hey everybody, I am bringing you another interview from the Mammoth Film Festival. I have with me Masha Ko, who is the director behind Bona Vada, and she is going to tell us all about the film, her experience at the festival, and so much more that deals with water and so many different things. Let's get to it now. Maria, thank you for joining us. Let's start off. Give me a synopsis, please, of Bona Vada.
Sure. Thank you so much for interviewing me.
My pleasure.
So basically, this film is about two party people, Anna and Evan, who are basically in the forest looking for this gorgeous cove to take the ultimate selfies. And so they get to the cove and they start taking selfies with their phone that, can go underwater. And Anna's concerns are growing around this mysterious cove. She just has a feeling that something might be strange there. Then shortly after that, she loses her friend Evan, and in the water, he just almost miraculously disappears. And now she's stuck in this big ocean world, trying to diving and swimming, trying to find her friend. And then as she keeps diving, she starts to discover frozen bodies on the bottom of the ocean. And these bodies are frozen in time. And they have not yet ascended this earth because they haven't told their stories yet. And they haven't yet found peace. So this is basically, and then it's a secret what happens next.
Just a light little film like that. I just thought this was so interesting, especially because, you kind of calling it an underwater queer film, which I thought, well, that's not every day, right? I mean, I'd love to hear how you kind of came to this and then talk a little bit about the technical aspect of shooting, because there is, obviously it's not all underwater, but a lot of it is. And, would just love to hear a little bit about how you came up with the whole scenario.
Definitely. So I actually came up with this idea by just my talks with my very good friend, Evan. And we were talking about this notion of rekindling our connection with our ancestors, and how for certain groups of people, it's very important. And specifically, when I say ancestors, I don't necessarily mean our biological ancestors, but the ancestors of our chosen families.
Right.
Because, a lot of queer people know what it's like to have to exile their own families, to have to leave their families and then find a new family in the metropolitan area. So we would always speak about history. And this film is also based on this idea of the future being the past not repeated. So because of that, it's also important to look into the past in order to not repeat the same mistakes and patterns just wearing different coats. And so I wanted to make a film that, that kind of indirectly makes people think about the past, by having these characters in the water actually be from 1950s. So each time Anna swims to them, we get a flashback of what their life was like in 1950s/1960s, and how different it was, and maybe how similar it is at the same time. It kind of depends on how you interpret that. So it was based on this idea of rekindling our connection with our ancestors to move forward, and this idea of time not being a linear thing. Instead, time almost existing on a spiral, where 2 points might be in different places, but if you look up, it's just a circle, and It actually might be the same point, because our lives are so informed about the past, and we're almost standing on the backs of people who came before us. And because of that, also the usage of polarity language, that sometimes even people in queer communities don't know what this language is, but it has been an important kind of historical marker, of oppression, and as well as, of the movement and a fight forward, this is a language that was mainly used well, it started in England. By a group of gay men, and it was popularized in England as well. And it was almost a secret language that gay men could speak to each other with in public.
Yeah.
When when it was illegal to be a homosexual, or bisexual, or lesbian. So that's also an important marker of this film, and what it means. Bona Vada would usually be a greeting that that queer people would tell to each other, and it just means it's so good to see. There's a longer version of this greeting that says Bona Vada, you dolly old deek. And there's quite different interpretations to that, but it also means it's so good to see you. I like your eyes, I like your hair, which I found pretty beautiful.
I love how you're like connecting all this stuff together. And, it's funny as I'm listening to you talk about this. Well, first of all, kind of two things about, points of meeting and time, et cetera. Many, I would argue, maybe most like spiritualists of a certain kind of ilk would say that time is always going like this, right? So it's the same thing. It just has another like revolution above it, so that it's higher, and I don't know, either worse so that you get the message as you keep continuing to go up. It's so intense that the lesson is learned after a certain number of revolutions, or spiritual involvement is that. I mean, it's just like a very, very, I don't know. I just think it's something that's being spoken about more and more now. Like you said, that concept and ancestors and what's going to happen next. That's one thing. And then on the other thing about like this kind of underground language, if you will, underrepresented demographics always seem to have a way of creating, language, right? I kind of think about my great aunt and grandmother having Pig Latin, which African Americans, would speak in a certain way so that others who were, oppressing just would not be able to figure it out, right? So, but I had not really heard that much until your film about language in that community, and it's just really, really fascinating. It's kind of cool in a way, too. I mean, not that somebody has to speak in a different manner to feel safe, but in a way, it's kind of a shame that it's not as prevalent anymore, because part of that is, I think, beautiful creation at the same time. Like, do you know what I mean? So it'd be cool if it was spoken that it didn't have to be, but just like, this is how we communicate, aside from slang. Anyway,
that is a part of history that is still alive.
Yes. It's kind of like, when children are like second generation of whatever, ethnic background, but they don't speak that original language anymore. You kind of feel like, oh, that's like too bad. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the technical aspect of all of this, because I'm sure it was not easy. So tell me about water, cameras, and actors and actresses.
Definitely. That's a really fun part. And again, of course, we didn't pursue this in a traditional way of shooting an underwater film, because this is all entirely self-funded film. And it was beautiful how we all just came together and made it happen. And so to recreate the ocean world, we of course could not shoot in the real ocean, although that was the original idea, but we quickly realized how impossible that is. And so we actually used the pool that was about 9 feet, 10 feet deep on the deep end. It had to be that deep to really sell this notion of being in this vast ocean. And we just blocked out the walls, because the walls are blue and there's no way to cheat that unless you use black fabric. So we just used black fabric to black out the walls so that it feels like it's in this dark void, and then just, adjust it all in color, to make it look even better. And then we recreated the ocean in the neighbor's pool. Basically, we put some kelp that we rented. We fished out real kelp from the beaches of California. And the most difficult part was actually putting the furniture on the bottom of that pool, because because, well, when it comes to items, I haven't gotten to the actors yet, but we had to secure that furniture, and with the furniture not flying up, that was really difficult. And then afterwards, of course, we had to have actors sit on that furniture, frozen. And to do that, the actors used something that's called a hookah. It's basically a breathing device that connects to a tank on top of the pool. And they would basically be breathing it, take a breath, put it away, freeze, hold their breath. Then if they're running out, take that thing again, take another breath, put it away, and just stay like that for like an hour, 2 hours of just doing that motion. And of course, that was extremely challenging. And we only had that pool for 2 days because we rented the pool.
Wow. But I mean, like, weren't the actors just must be, I mean, do they meditate a lot? Like, I mean, what types of character or personality does one have to be able to do that? That's just fascinating.
That's a good question. And some of the actors were actually performance artists in the queer space.
Okay.
So I assume, again, but some were just actors. It was like a mix of performance artists and actors who were cast in this film. So I think that kind of helps, being a performance artist, doing things that involve your body, that push the limits of the body.
True.
But also just people who felt passionate about the project and were excited. And none of them were trained underwater models. And I myself am actually also in the film. I'm one of the underwater women that Anna discovers. So I would never torture someone like that in this way unless I'm also a part of it with everybody. And I personally found it deeply meditative and a fascinating experience when it's all just quiet and you're just breathing. It almost felt like a sensory deprivation experience.
How interesting. Oh my gosh. So what's the major thing that you learned from this whole filmmaking journey, Masha, or maybe the main thing that's like the takeaway for you?
That's a good question. I think because of the extremely challenging nature of this shoot, and it actually being my first serious film.
Well, that's what I was going to get to next. Like,
which I just
no sense in like starting small, Masha. Like, let's do something really hard and underwater for hours as your first attempt. But yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so I think the main takeaway for me is how it would absolutely be impossible without the people involved and their passion for this message and this project. And it was really heartwarming to truly experience this magic of indie filmmaking that some people sometimes speak about, but you don't know quite what that is unless you attempt something that's so difficult that could fail in a million ways. And people just trust and love and support. And that's what really makes it all happen.
So what brought you to this, Masha? Like, I mean, because it was challenging and all that, I mean, and this is your first film, why do you do it? What is it about the medium that you love, or just why at this moment, I guess, did you decide to do this?
Why at this moment in time?
Yeah.
Well, it came from many different sources. But again, it came from my talks with different friends and from this idea of feeling like today might be, from the divisions that we see today, it might be important to bring us back.
Oh, yes. I understood that about like how, I guess, the story kind of came to life, but just you kicking off your filmmaking career. What's behind a little bit more of that, like the Masha Co story, if you will?
Oh, my story regarding the narrative, or regarding the technical aspect?
Yeah, because you said that this is your first film, right? Yeah. And so what is it about filmmaking? How did you come to filmmaking, right? Why is it a medium that you love? What's in your background that has brought you to this?
Definitely. Well, I grew up in Russia, and my mother was actually a film actress. So I grew up
Okay.
on sets. So I always loved being on sets. And I've auditioned for different things. I've been a part of different, so film and theater. I've been in theater productions, have always been a part of my life. But I think because my mother was an actress, it was something that wasn't so cool to me. I mean, I respect
Right, because you always have to separate from the parent, right?
yeah, I
Okay.
respect acting. Acting is such a difficult thing to do, but I found, I found my inspiration, and I felt like I could express myself better directing. So,
Very
um,
cool. So then
yeah,
this
and
is
it
like
came
your
from the
first,
story. It really
sorry?
did. It really, this notion to direct, it really came from the story, if that makes sense, from just wanting to tell the story
So that's really
and just
interesting
doing it.
because, I guess that's why I kind of wanted to get at that because usually it's like the reverse, right? That I've always wanted to be a filmmaker and I did this and I did that and I did this and then this story happened. But it sounds like, and so I guess, I'm getting that right, that the story kind of brought the filmmaker out of you, which is, not like the norm at all. So that's very cool. So then you do all this and you go through all like holding your breath and everything else, and it's your first film, and then boom, you end up getting accepted into this film festival. So how did that feel?
Oh, that was remarkable. I mean, again, we didn't have expectations for this film at all, and we didn't have any kind of film festival strategy. We just really wanted to tell the story, and we're excited by all the challenges like water, and putting the furniture and making art out of that. So that was a very unexpected but very exciting experience, to go to a film festival and see it on a big screen so soon. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Um, Tell me what you went to Mammoth then, and so what did you think of it?
I think it was great. I mean, the festival was very supportive of filmmakers. It was, I think, as a first time goer to a film festival, presenting my own film there, it was a remarkable experience because the community is very close knit and warm, and we just felt very welcome
Everybody
there.
has said the same thing that it's just an
Yeah.
insane like feeling and such a huge amount of support between filmmakers and the intimacy and the level like the level and the intimacy coming together, I guess, is what seemingly makes it so unique because you can have that level but then it's very big, and then the intimacy sometimes, it's still everybody's very creative but not really anybody who's of note just yet, and that's fine too. But this has somehow kind of helped everything come together. It's just, I don't know, I'm just really excited to see what happens with Mammoth next.
Me too. It is such a new festival, and
But
it's
has such like
attracting
a
a lot of.
hot buzz on it, for something
Yeah,
that's only been a couple of years. I can't hardly wait to see what happens when it hits, say, year 5 or 6 or something like that. You know what I mean?
definitely. And again, it all comes from community. I think that really pushes.
Yes. Well, Masha, I'm so glad that we've had the chance to talk with you. How can we stay up on what you're going to be doing next, or if anybody has any tips on, needs any tips on shooting underwater or whatever? Because I think Masha has given some pretty killer ones. Is it best like social website? What's good?
Yes, definitely. So you could follow our Instagram page for the film, Bona, Vada, and that's directly managed by me. So you could always shoot questions there, and follow this film's journey. That's the best way. I also do have a website. It's called mashaco.com. And it includes some other projects that I've been involved with, not necessarily directing, but producing or casting. Um,
Yeah, and the site is hot, you guys. I always have to shout it out when the site is very good because a lot of filmmakers just kind of let that go. And it's very challenging to kind of, find them for business and everything else. So, you guys, 2022 resolution, if you can fit another one in and don't have one, at least a landing page. But yeah, Masha's, yours is very, I don't know, it's just very user friendly and it has like everything out there. Just this great promo, huh? Because you got a promo.
Gotta do
Definitely.
it.
Well,
Definitely.
thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I wish you nothing but success on this film and others. And like, yeah, I mean, if this was like your first project out, I too can't wait to see what you do next, because this was some initiation, huh? If you can hold your breath and make a film that gets into a film festival, then I think everything is downhill from here.
Thank you. I hope so. But I will take on the next challenge, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah. You guys, I hope that you have enjoyed watching this interview and listening to Masha, who just seems really, really great. We'll be bringing you more and more interviews from different film festivals. And for now, I am Lauren DeLisa Coleman for the Inside series here at Filmio. Thanks for watching.